Good morning, and thank you all for attending Lobby Day 2013. My name is Michael Mattia, and I'm the chair of the advisory panel on legislation for the New York Physical Therapy Association. First, on behalf of the association and its leadership, I'd like to thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule to attend this most important day. I prepared this presentation to review the legislative process in New York State and to discuss the plan for our day in Albany. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. What are some of the learning objectives for today's program? We'd like to discuss and learn about the structure of the executive and legislative branches of New York State. We'd like to discuss and learn how an idea can become a law. Discuss the legislative process and how it applies to the practice of physical therapy in New York State. To discuss Lobby Day 2013, including current legislation. And to discuss the role of PAC funds and PAC donations. Let's begin our discussion with the executive branch of New York State. The executive branch is composed of the governor, Andrew M. Cuomo, the lieutenant governor, Robert J. Duffy, the state comptroller, Thomas P. Napoli, and the attorney general, Eric T. Schneiderman. The second branch of the New York State government, which is the branch that we will be dealing with today, is the legislative branch of New York State. The New York State Constitution authorizes a two-house legislative branch composed of the Senate and the Assembly. These representatives are elected by individuals like you and I, and the number of representatives can vary in each house. There is a third branch of the government, which is the judicial branch, which is composed of the state courts and the municipal courts and their various components. Most of our discussion today will center around the legislative branch. The second branch of the New York State government is the legislative branch. The New York State Constitution authorizes a two-house legislative branch composed of the Senate and Assembly. These representatives are elected by the citizens, and the number of representatives can vary during any election cycle. The third branch is the judicial branch, which is composed of the state courts and the municipal courts and their various components. Our discussion today obviously will deal mostly with the legislative branch of New York State. The Senate. The New York State Senate currently consists of 63 members elected at the district level by their constituents. The lieutenant governor is the president of the Senate, currently Robert J. Duffy. The Senate Majority Leader is the temporary president in the absence of the lieutenant governor. The Senate Majority Leader is also third in succession from the governor. The president is mostly a ceremonial position, but their vote can break a tie in a measure before the House. The current majority co-leaders are Dean Skelos, who's a Republican, and Jeffrey Klein, who's from the Independent Democratic Conference. The current minority leader is Andrea Stewart Cousins, who's a Democrat. The Assembly, or the People's House. The Assembly consists of 150 members, also elected by their constituents at the district level. The Speaker of the Assembly is the leader of the Assembly. Currently the position is held by Sheldon Silver, a Democrat, a downstate assemblyman. The Speaker is elected for a 2-year term by the members. The Speaker makes all of the committee assignments and directs most of the work of the Assembly staff. In the Assembly, the majority leader is Joseph Morell, a Democrat, and the minority leader is Brian Kolb, a Republican. How a bill becomes a law. Reviewing the process. What is the definition of a law? In general, a law is a rule of being or of conduct established by an authority, in our case New York State, that is able to enforce its will, a controlling regulation, and the mode or order according to which an agent or power acts. It's also any edict, decree, order, ordinance, statute, resolution, judicial decision, or usage of a decision recognized and enforced by the controlling authority, once again in our case, New York State. Every bill that becomes a law begins with an idea. The idea is the starting point in the process, and the first point at which the citizen has a chance to have a say in the writing or rewriting of law. Subjects of legislation are as varied as the range of human activities. Someone once said that legislation deals with birth and death and everything in between. Ideas for legislation come from many sources. A senator may have an idea. One of his or her constituents may point out a need. A state official may propose a change. An organization, such as the NYPTA, may espouse a cause that requires a change in the law. There is no monopoly on ideas for legislation. Often one person's idea on how to solve a problem has resulted in good legislation to help solve the problems of many people. Bill drafting. Once an idea for a new law has been settled on, it must be put into bill form before it can be considered by the Senate. The actual drafting of legislation requires a specialized type of legal training and is usually done by the staff of the Legislative Bill Drafting Commission. Sometimes, however, an interest group may have its own attorneys draft the bill, and lawyers working in various state agencies and the executive branch often submit their ideas for legislation in bill form. So we had an idea, we had it drafted into bill form, and now we must have sponsorship. A bill must have a sponsor to be introduced. A main focus and goal of our Lobby Day activities is to attain support and sponsorship or co-sponsorship for our legislation. When a bill comes to the floor for a vote, the larger the co-sponsorship and support, the greater the chances for passage. The introduction of a bill. No law may be enacted in New York State unless it has been adopted by the legislature in bill form. To be adopted, it must be first introduced. With a single exception, bills can be introduced only by legislators or by standing committees of the Senate and Assembly. That exception is the executive budget, which is submitted directly by the governor. On introduction in the Senate, a bill goes to the Introduction and Revision Office, where it is examined and corrected, given a number, sent to the appropriate standing committee, entered into the Senate computer, deemed to have had its first and second readings, and printed. Incidentally, first reading and second reading and third reading are terms which linger in the legislative vocabulary from the days when each bill was read aloud in full public session 3 times before final action could be taken. As a point of reference, our high copay bill sits in the Insurance Committee in both the Senate and the Assembly at this time. Committee action. Just as we engage specialists for specialized problems such as legal or medical advice, so does the Senate engage specialists to study legislation. These specialists on members of standing committees who evaluate bills and decide whether to report or send them to the Senate floor for a final decision by the full membership. A committee agenda is issued each week, listing the bills and issues each Senate committee will handle the following week. Committees often hold public hearings on bills to gather the widest possible range of opinion. The committee stage is the second point at which the citizen's contribution is important. Once again, as a point of reference, our bills are in the Insurance Committee. An expression of opinion on a proposed bill can be sent directly to the committee chairman, or it can be sent to your local senator for relay to the committee members. The committee system acts as a funnel through which the large number of bills introduced each session must pass before they can be considered. The system also acts as a sieve to sift out undesirable or unworkable ideas. After consideration, the committee may report the bill to the full Senate for consideration. It may amend the bill, or it may reject it. The calendar. The daily calendar is the agenda for Senate sessions and contains those measures which have come through the committee process. Bills take their place in order as they are reported from committee, and at this point are referred by their calendar number. This process allows additional time for your reaction against or for a bill. Each bill has to be on the senator's desk for 3 days before it can be voted on, unless the governor authorizes and the Senate accepts a message of necessity for a certain bill. When bills reach the order of third reading, remember the first, second, and third reading, they become ready for a final vote. If the sponsor of a bill realizes at this point that his bill may not have enough support for passage, once again, remember we talked about sponsorship and the number of people co-sponsoring a bill, or has a defect which may require an amendment, he may ask that it be laid aside, returned to committee for further study, or starred, which is placed in an inactive file. The majority leader may also ask that a bill be starred. Once starred, it cannot be acted on until 1 day after removal of the star. When the bill comes up for consideration on the order of the third reading, it is subject to debate, discussion, or explanation. By communicating your views on a particular issue to your senator, you may have another opportunity at this point to participate in the lawmaking process. Floor amendments. Once a bill has been introduced, reported out by a committee, and is on the calendar for consideration by the full Senate, it can still be amended. The sponsor of the bill, for example, can submit the changes to the Bill Drafting Commission. The bill, now in its amended form, retains its original number, but amended versions are denoted by a letter suffix, A, B, C, or D, and so on and so forth, for each time a bill is altered. However, beyond this, any senator may amend a given bill by offering amendments to it on the Senate floor, even if he or she is not one of the bill's sponsors. This method allows all members access to a bill's language, opening it to the suggestions and opinions of members who may like the essential ideas of a bill, but disagree with the sponsor on one or more of the legislation's details. Moreover, since the amendments are offered in open session, all members can then ask questions and discuss the merits of the proposed amendments. Once again, if we can reach our legislators and have a consensus opinion, the amount of discussion can be minimized, improving the chances of passage. Conference committees. Sometimes the Senate and Assembly pass similar bills but cannot easily reconcile the differences between them in a reasonable time frame. In such cases, a procedural device called a conference committee can be used to iron out the differences. The Senate Majority Leader and the Assembly Speaker each appoint 5 members from their respective houses to serve on this committee. After agreement is reached, a bill is printed and processed like any other bill. Passing a bill. After explanation, discussion, or debate, a vote is taken. If a majority of the senators approves, the bill is sent to the Assembly. In the Assembly, you again have a chance to influence the bill as it moves through a process basically the same as that in the Senate. It is referred to a committee for discussion, and if approved there, it goes to the full membership for a vote. If the bill is approved in the Assembly without amendment, it goes to the governor. However, if it is changed, it is returned to the Senate for concurrence in the amendments. Remember, both bills must have the same language to pass through both houses. The reverse procedure is followed if the Assembly first passes a bill identical to a state measure, or if the Senate amends an Assembly bill. Once a bill passes through both houses with the same language, it goes on to the governor. While the legislature is in session, a bill that reaches the governor has 10 days, not counting Sundays, to be signed by the governor or vetoed by the governor. Signed bills become law. Veto bills do not. However, the governor's failure to sign or veto a bill within the 10-day period means that it becomes a law automatically. Vetoed bills are returned to the House that first passed them, together with a statement of the reason for their disapproval. A vetoed bill can become a law if 2/3 of the members of each House vote to override the governor's veto. If a bill is sent to the governor when the legislature is out of session, the rules are a bit different. At such times, the governor has 30 days in which to make a decision, and failure to act, or also what's known as a pocket veto, has the same effect as a veto. Citizen comment is an important part of the legislative process. Public opinion often affects the shape of a bill as well as its eventual success or failure. Remember, your input, our input, can play a crucial role and does play a crucial role in determining how a bill becomes a law. Let's review the process. The idea for a bill can come from several sources: legislators and their staff, the governor, his staff or departments, individuals, lobbyists, and interest groups such as the NYPTA. A bill must have a sponsor in order to be introduced. Bills can be introduced by legislators or standing committees, with the exception of the executive budget, which is introduced by the governor. The legislative sponsor submits the concept for a bill to the Legislative Bill Drafting Commission. The Legal Services Department drafts the bill, making sure it is in proper form and the content reflects the sponsor's intentions. The prime sponsor may circulate the bill among colleagues in order to find additional sponsors. The bill draft is then introduced, assigned a bill number, and printed. Once a bill is introduced, Assembly or Senate leadership refers it to the appropriate committee for review, discussion, revision, and ultimate approval or disapproval. Committee members in each House evaluate the bill and decide whether it should be approved with or without revisions. As a bill makes its way through one or more committees, it may be amended. Each time a bill is amended, it is indicated by sequential letters at the end. If a bill makes it through all of the appropriate committees, it is reported out to the floor of the House and is placed on the daily calendar. If a committee does not report a bill out to the floor, it is said to have died in committee. Any bill that requires expenditure of state funds must go to the Assembly Ways and Means Committee or the Senate Finance Committee. The majority leader of the Senate is the chair of the Senate Rules Committee, and the Assembly Speaker chairs the Assembly Rules Committee. Therefore, these committees play a significant role in the flow of legislation. They are especially influential near the end of a legislative session when all committees report bills to the Rules Committee. A bill that is reported out of its assigned committee may be put to the floor for a vote before the entire House after it has aged on the printed calendar for at least 3 legislative days. If a bill passes the floor vote in the other House, where it has also been scrutinized in the committee, then it will be sent to the governor. Failure to pass the floor vote in either house means the bill will not go to the governor. Prior to a floor vote, a bill may be debated before the entire house. When a bill passes both houses, it is delivered to the governor. The governor may approve of a bill and sign it, or disapprove and veto the bill. A governor's veto can be overridden by 2/3 majority of a vote in each house. If the governor signs the bill, it becomes law. I've included this slide as a quick reference for the legislative process in New York State. It's basically a flow diagram outlining the legislative process. A moment to discuss lobbyists. Lobbyists are professionals who are hired to assist an organization in their advocacy efforts. Our New York Physical Therapy Association lobbyist is Brian Lucy, and his firm is White, Osterman, and Hanna. Brian is a tireless advocate for the concerns and needs of the Physical Therapy Association in New York State. I'd like to take a moment to review the New York Physical Therapy Association legislative plan for 2013. Healthcare reform. 2013 will be a pivotal year for the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, and New York State will move to set up the health insurance exchange and to make policy decisions regarding coverage for citizens. In 2012, NYPTA, in conjunction with the Speech and Occupational Therapy Associations, engaged the Governor's Office to provide input on the essential benefits of rehabilitation. NYPTA also used the opportunity to highlight the harm caused by excessive copays, and that message resonated. In 2013, NYPTA continues to engage the Governor's Office, the legislature, and its regulators to advocate for coverage of physical therapy services and affordable access to those services. As a point of reference, the Governor has chosen Oxford Health as the model insurer for the New York State Health Insurance Exchange. Workers' compensation. The New York Physical Therapy Association will pursue 2 bills addressing issues related to the workers' compensation system. The PTA bill, which is now in both houses, or the Senate 3555 bill, sponsored by Griffo, permits an authorized physician to direct that physical therapy care may be rendered by a duly licensed PTA. Our assembly sponsor is pending. The second bill, which has to do with rate review, requires a sponsor in both the Senate and the Assembly, and this relates to the establishment of rates of payment and delivery of healthcare services, directs the chair of the Workers' Compensation Board to biennially prepare and establish a schedule of fees. In addition, the NYPTA will also continue to meet periodically with the Workers' Compensation Board to discuss outstanding issues. Referral for profit. NYPTA is considering drafting legislation that closes existing loopholes in current New York State laws that permit referral for profit or POPS arrangements. The state budget. NYPTA continues to oppose budget proposals that restrict access to physical therapy services or reduce reimbursement. Practice issues. NYPTA will oppose legislation which would negatively impact the profession, including the corporate practice of the profession, and legislation which would negatively impact the physical therapy scope of practice. Our Lobby Day focus today will be our PT High Copay Bill, the Assembly 1666 Bill, which is sponsored by Assemblyman Cahill, and the Senate 2319 Bill, which is sponsored by Senator DeFrancisco. The Senate and Assembly versions of the bill have been referred to the insurance committees in both houses. We will also discuss the Workers' Compensation Bill, which is sponsored in the Senate by Senator Griffo, number S3555. This is the bill which establishes the PTA reimbursement for New York State workers' compensation patients. The bill is now in the Labor Committee, and we are in need of a sponsor in the Assembly, as I said previously. I'd now like to discuss today, Lobby Day 2013. Let's take a look at the day. We're scheduled to arrive at the Legislative Office Building at 8:45 a.m. Everyone must check in and receive their ID tag. Please report to your assigned legislator meeting group and its leadership person. Meetings are scheduled every 30 minutes beginning at 9 or 9:30 a.m. Each meeting should be approximately 20 minutes in duration. The goal of each meeting is to clearly articulate the bill or bills and request support and sponsorship by the legislator. Lunch will be scheduled by your leader of your team. Now let's take a look at today's activities. We're scheduled to arrive at the Legislative Office Building at 8:45 a.m. Please check in and receive your ID tag. Report to your assigned legislator meeting group and its leadership person. Meetings are scheduled every 30 minutes beginning at 9 or 9:30 a.m. Each meeting should be approximately 20 minutes in duration. The goal of each meeting is to clearly articulate the bill or bills and request support and sponsorship by the legislator. Lunch will be scheduled by your leader. Afternoon meetings will be scheduled from 1 to 3:30 p.m. After the meetings are completed, leadership will provide feedback forms to the NYPTA staff in the Legislative Office Building lobby. We will board the buses by 4 p.m. for return to our home districts. Just a note. At this point, I need to thank our legislative liaisons for all of their hard work in making this day a success. This schedule is an overview. The schedule can vary depending on the schedule that has been put together by your district legislative liaison. All of those schedules are available to you from your liaison, and you should follow that schedule. So Lobby Day is over. We've had a great day. We've met with our legislators. We've discussed the issues. We hope to have increased support, and we hope to have our bills passed. What can we do after Lobby Day? So we as PTs need to be aware of the laws and legislation that affect our daily practice. Today you've learned that we do have a voice in the process, and we do have an active association that monitors the daily activities and protects and brings forth the ideas of our profession. There is strength in numbers and in people being involved. Your elected officials, as you've seen today, are impressed when they greet their constituents in a meeting on the issues. Follow up with your local legislators by phone or at the district office to discuss our issues. Stay involved in the process through attendance and participation at your district meetings. And stand at the ready to assist in any call to action that is published by the NYPTA. Another very important thing that we can do after Lobby Day has to do with the Political Action Committee, or PAC. All funding for the Political Action Committee must come from individual donations. No membership dollars can be utilized for PAC funding. PAC funds are the only source of funding to allow for our association to be politically active and relevant. Please donate to PAC. every dollar makes a difference in our ability to bring about political and legal outcomes for our profession in New York State. Another very important thing that we can do after Lobby Day has to do with the Political Action Committee, or PAC. All funding for the Political Action Committee must come from the individual donations of our membership. No membership dollars can be utilized for PAC funding. PAC funds are the only source of funding to allow for our association to be politically active and relevant. Please donate to PAC. Every dollar makes a difference in our ability to bring about beneficial political and legal outcomes for our profession in New York State. Once again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending Lobby Day 2013. I hope that you found this presentation to be informative, and I hope that it answered some of your questions regarding our schedule for today and any questions you may have had about the Lobby Day or legislative process in New York State. Please be sure to fill out the post-course survey while on the bus or mail it in from home. Thanks again. I hope to see you all during the day today at Lobby Day 2013.